Welcome to Fly on the Wall podcast. I'm your host, Chris Sonkson, CEO and founder of Church Boom. Here you get to sit in on a live coaching session as I coach pastors through the ministry challenges we all face. If you find this podcast helpful, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Hey, today we're talking with my good friend, Pastor Marlando. He's got an incredible church out in Washington, and we're talking about how to build high-performing teams. How do you build them? How do you get your staff operating at the highest level possible? It was a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. How can I serve you, and what's on your mind?
Yeah, so my question for you today is, what is the primary role of an executive pastor, and what should his weekly schedule look like?
Yeah, that's awesome. You're at a point where you're kind of shifting into that gear as well.
Yeah,
aren't you? Because you and I have talked about that. So
yeah, I've had an executive pastor since 2017, January of 2017.
Yeah, but I think he's shifting. It seems like he's shifting more into a fine-tuned role, at least from the time we were together a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and because I think what happens, Marlando, is for you, and I see other guys do it, is they're shifting from being an associate pastor to being an executive pastor. And that's a major shift, because an associate pastor often is a backstop, like in baseball. Whatever ball gets thrown the wrong way, they get to catch it. But an executive pastor has a different feel and a different focus altogether. One thing I always say is, you and I've talked about it, but it's dreamer, designer, developer.
Yep.
You know, the lead guy has to have the vision. He's the one that God's called. He's to be the leader of that organization, that church, whatever. He's the leader. He's got to be the dreamer. He's got to be the one that God's given that vision to. That's his job. You've got an executive pastor that is able to grab the heart of the leader and then do the designing and developing. And it's a lot like building a home. You go and you build a home. You say, this is what I want it to look like. Someone says, all right, they do the architectural plan, you look at it and say thumbs up, and then they start building it. So someone designs it, then someone develops it. Yep. But you got to dream it. The owner's got to dream it. In this case, you're the owner. Mm-hmm. And now you got to have someone that's designing and developing. So that's one thing. They've got to start being a designer and a developer. And I think that's where your executive pastor needs to shift into that role, thinking, I got to do that.
Yes, sir.
Now, there are other things, and I think depending on the size of the church, you know, when you start getting into the thousands, it's like, okay, I got 3 executive pastors, and you divide their roles even more refined. Because remember, you're always, as an organization, when you're growing, you're moving from utility to specialist. You're always moving from utility to specialist.
Yes.
And so the bigger it gets, the more specialized it becomes.
Yes.
Where you're at in your size, I think he is he's the only executive pastor. So he's got to be the designer developer, or he's got to be dreamer, designer, developer. He's got to be the designer, developer. You be the dreamer.
Yes.
I think he also has to be the one that is working very hard to connect with the staff and bring out the best in them.
Yes.
He's got to bring out the best in the staff. He's got to create a system that says, I meet with them twice a month, one-on-one, or however often they do that. I know what they're going to do over the next 6-9 months, and I'm helping them get there.
Yes.
Similar to a manager or coach of a baseball team. You know, you and I own the whatever baseball team. We tell the coach, hey, you got this many players. Now bring out the best in all of them and get us to the World Series.
Yes.
At the end of the day, that's all we really want the dude to do, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Bring out the best. And that's the same thing with an executive pastor. You got to bring out the best in them. You gotta set them up in points of helping them dream, helping them figure out plans to get there. Okay, youth pastor, let's look at your ministry. Okay, well, you run a youth group. What are we doing for the city? How are you getting on campuses? How are you connecting with other principals in the area? What team members do you need to raise up? What leadership structures needs to change? Hey, worship leader, let's talk about you. Okay, in the next 6 months, how many volunteers do you need to raise up? How do we need to restructure what you're doing? What's our objectives for the next 6 months? And then making sure that they get there through a system approach. Messages inspire, but systems change behavior. And creating that system for all of them, like how do we get them to that next level? I think that's what a pastor has to do, and then an executive pastor. And then I would say the other thing is they have to have an intense level of loyalty,
Yes.
not just faithful. They can't just be faithful to Pastor Marlando. They need to be loyal. Faithfulness says, I won't talk bad about you. Loyalty says, I won't let anybody else talk bad about you. They've got to be loyal to that and have your back.
Yes.
And know that they're going to come to your defense all the time.
Yes.
And know they're going to stand with you. And you have to have that trust in that relationship with them. It's a huge thing when you start moving into the next levels of church life, growth and development and all that. You got to have someone that you just absolutely trust.
Yes.
That they're never going to hurt you. If you live in that constant wondering if you can't trust them, that's going to be an issue. And it might be an issue on their side because they're the ones that are creating that, or it might be an issue on the lead pastor's side because they've been hurt in the past and they don't have the ability or the wherewithal to learn how to trust someone.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I would look at. But I think that's where you're headed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As we discussed, that's exactly where we're headed. And you had even mentioned how important it is that he begins to get out of some of the things that he's in right now that's vying for his attention, that's hindering him from stepping into this new role.
100%. See, because the more, and he's got to, and he needs to work on, he's got to move from letting go of certain things. Again, you can't trade time or you can't add hours, you can only trade them. So he's got to begin to start trading his hours. He can't add them. Yeah. No one gets 25 hours in a day. So he's got to start trading his hours. Because the thing that we're looking for is not only to free up your time, we have to free up your mind.
Yes.
Both have to be freed up. Because if he is not handling things on the back end, you're going to end up with what's called details fatigue. You do you do not want to live in detail fatigue.
Okay, like, and I got to get out of that because I can tell you I'm there right now.
You are. Of course you are. I've taught, and I know you're there. Yeah. But you're in detail fatigue. And he's got to remove some things from his lane. He's got to get into what is mission critical for him, and that's where his time needs to be spent. He needs to focus. He cannot be all over the map, which means he might need to eliminate, delegate, automate. You've heard me do the whole mission critical. He might need to lose all that stuff. But he needs to get into that lane. He needs to be able to handle building up the team so that you're not only is you as a lead pastor, your time is freed up, but your mind is freed up. Because otherwise you live in detail fatigue. He also needs to be the person, and you also want to have a staff that you don't have to keep track of not only your to-do list, but you got to keep track of theirs. You can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
So you know what that's like. You go back, hey, did you get that handled? Hey, did you get that taken care of? Hey, how's that coming along?
Yeah.
You don't want that. You want to have the team members next to you where it's like, I don't want to have to keep track of your to-do list.
Yeah.
And so he needs to be that person too. It's like, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm driving. I know what lanes I'm in. I'm driving the team. We got this. You and him need to communicate regularly.
Yes.
Not got a minute meetings.
Yeah.
You need to have like, hey, every Tuesday from 9 to 9:45, we do reporting in, and we report. Yeah. And now that's when you go into it. Like, how's this going? How's that going? He's reporting to you. Okay, that's going good. That's going okay, great. Let's meet next week. We'll talk. It's got to be pretty regular,
Yeah, and we do have regular weekly meetings, but what you're saying is very intentional, though, on the conversations that need to be happening in those meetings.
Yeah, and it's okay for you to have a list that matches his list. You can open up your laptop. He opens up his. How's this going? How's that going? Okay, great. Okay, and he needs to come reporting how everything's going, and he comes with the 3 or 4 questions he needs to ask you to continue moving down the direction.
Yes.
And so you guys come together. Maybe you got a little bit of a list. He's got a list. Okay, everything's great. He's asking you a few questions. you got to get to that point, and it's going to be very crucial for him to get to that point where he knows what to bring to you. He knows what questions to ask you. And you are able to walk away from that Tuesday, 9 o'clock, 30-minute, 45-minute check-in meeting that you guys do every week. You walk away and you go like this. He has to free up space in his pastor's head.
Yeah.
So that you can start thinking about bigger things. Yeah. You got to think about bigger vision, bigger finances, bigger growth, bigger property, bigger relationships. You have to think about those things.
Yes, yes.
But if you get into detail fatigue, you're never thinking about those things. And now you and him are becoming the lid to the organization.
Yeah, yeah. You're right.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
So that's what I would have him work on. So you can free up your time, free up mind, detail fatigue.
Very good.
Yeah. So, what else you got on your mind today?
Yeah. So I would say my next question is, what is an effective system for retaining first-time guests?
Ooh, there we go. Hey, the all-time question. I do think that first thing, above anything else, I think the best follow-up program we can have is a great experience.
Mm-hmm.
If you and I'm in Washington today, we're hanging out, you want to try out this new restaurant, whatever. We go there, and it's a bad experience. You may or may not say anything, but probably not going back.
Yeah.
Now, you go there and have a great experience. It doesn't matter if they send you a follow-up card. You're going back because it was a great experience. Same thing with, hey, I went and saw a movie. It was hilarious. You got to go see this movie. You're going to go market for that movie even though they don't pay you for it.
Yeah.
You're going to offer them word-of-mouth marketing that they didn't pay for because you had a great experience. So I think the number one thing is, man, let's make sure that we provide an amazing experience on Sunday morning.
Very good.
Because that is the experience on Sunday morning, your experience, the experience you give them, that is your number one best follow-up program. Because it doesn't matter if, go back to the bad restaurant. They serve us, the food is cold, it's horrible, the waitress was mean, the place was all hot, the air conditioner wasn't working, I don't know, whatever, just all, it couldn't have gone worse, If they send you a nice little card saying, thanks for coming and we hope to see you again, it don't matter, you're not going back because the experience was bad. So what happens is we can talk about, text in church app or something like that. And I'm sure you're doing that. And who isn't doing that, that kind of thing. And the follow up. And then hopefully they come back, the gold standard, the gold standard is 1 out of 4.
Okay.
1 out of 6 or 7 is okay too, but 1 out of 4 is great. So you're not going to get all of them to come back. First of all, you got some people that live far away. You got some people that they were dragged there. They're only there for a neighbor or friend, whatever. But a percentage you should be able to retain.
Yes.
And again, you can follow. I'm a big fan. Follow up with them. Give them the text. What I used to back in the day. We used to drop off little batches of cookies to first-time guests.
Yeah.
I actually, personally, there's a big church. A buddy of mine's got a church of about 18,000. And he's like, dude, we're going back to that. And I said, why is that? And he goes, because technology has taken away personal touch. Whereas in years ago, it was like, don't bother me at home. Now it's like, I can't believe someone actually did something for me.
Yeah.
So it's actually coming back. So I think there's some personal touch options that we can do for first-time guests that are no longer a burden like they used to be because technology has created a distance from us. So I think you follow up, you write a little note, you send a little text, you remind them on Saturday, hope to see you again, that kind of thing. Maybe drop off something at their house, send them a little gift, whatever it is, and we could talk about that all day long. There's lots of ideas.
Oh, yeah.
But go back to that first thing, that the best follow-up program you can have is a great service, a great experience.
Yes.
And Marlando, the one thing I would say is that your team needs to feel that every Sunday.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to share in a huddle, the huddles,
Yeah.
you get 40 people together and you have a little huddle. One of my favorite things to share in the huddle is this statement. And whenever I'm in a huddle is, hey, I know that today is just another Sunday for you, but it's not another Sunday for somebody.
Yeah.
So, hey, I'll kind of work, hey, worship team, it's just another Sunday. This is a 252nd Sunday you've done playing guitar. Hey, children's team, children's pastor, this is the 39th service you've done this year. It's just another Sunday. You're all walking in, you're grabbing the signs, you know where to put them, you set out the curriculum, you set out the sign-in for the children, you put your guitar in the certain spot, you tune it up to a certain level. Like, we all just kind of have our thing because it's just another Sunday for us if we're honest.
Yep.
And that's okay, I get that. But let's keep in mind, it's not another Sunday for somebody. And then I'll go on to say, Marlando, which steal it and make it your own. I'll say to them, you know why it's not another Sunday? Because this morning at 6:15, some mom woke up and has been praying because her adult son is finally coming to church today.
Wow.
She's been inviting him for 2.5 years. She woke up at 6:15 to spend some extra time in prayer because after 2.5 years, her adult son is finally going to show up.
Wow.
And we are not going to let her down today.
Yeah, that's good.
They need to feel that.
Mm-hmm.
Because guests don't come with mercy, they come with judgment. They need to feel that. Like, this is not another Sunday for somebody. This is the Sunday that someone's been waiting for 2 years, 8 years, 12 years, inviting their neighbor, friend, coworker, boss, husband, wife, whatever, son, daughter. This is a Sunday 8 years in the making for somebody.
Yeah.
We're not going to let them down.
That's really good.
And that's just something that I have been very convicted by. That we're just like, we're going to do our best. It doesn't mean we're going to hit a home run every time.
Yeah.
But it ain't going to be because we didn't try.
Yeah.
So how we act, how we smile, how we deliver children's ministry, how we deliver worship. Let's think about that person that it's not just another Sunday for.
Yeah, that's really good.
So
that is really good.
I think that's an important part of that first time guest
Yeah.
thing. So that, again, there's a lot of systems that you can do behind that after they come. And there's a lot out there, and a lot of people are doing some really great stuff. But, man, I go back to, hey, if you like the restaurant, you go back. If you don't, you don't.
Yeah, it's true. It's very true.
If they don't like the restaurant, they ain't coming back. So let's make sure they like the restaurant.
Yeah.
You know,
very good.
Let's keep
very
the main thing.
good.
Let's keep the main thing. Make sure that they feel loved by people.
Yeah.
Everything's done with excellence. Their kids are taken care of, and we point them to Jesus.
Yeah.
And if they don't get that experience, then, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know.
Yeah.
Thoughts, follow-up questions?
Yeah, I just love that. And so going back to the huddle, right now I have my youth pastor, Isaac. He's been the one leading that in the mornings, about, 10, 15 minutes, just kind of encouraging them and really, pulling them together. So we've been doing that for about 2 years now, and so again, it's just kind of that whole idea of just, making sure that, we're on point and moving in the right direction.
Yeah, well, that's good. I don't know what he does there. He probably does a great job, but just make sure that it includes a vision moment.
Yes.
And a moment where it points to what they do matters.
Okay.
And
vision moment. Yes.
Yeah, where it's like, hey, man, let's not forget at the church we're all about blank.
Yep.
And just this week he can hold up an email. Pastor got this email. And I just want to read it to you real quick. Or he pre-plans and says, hey, let's not forget we're all about, points over to the youth pastor, points over to the children's pastor. Hey, what happened this last week? Man, I had the opportunity to lead not only a child to the Lord, but the mom and dad. And it was an amazing moment in my office. Okay, now letting other people chime in for those celebration moments, because you want to take the story in that huddle to connect it to the vision and the mission. It's got to connect to the vision and mission. So that way, people feel like, man, what we're doing matters. Always remember, Marlando, everybody wants to get paid. Everybody does.
Yeah.
If I paint houses, I own a big contracting company, you come there and you're like, okay, I'll paint houses, with you or whatever. I don't know. You work for my company on Friday. I'm like, ooh, I don't have your check. Sorry. And then you're like, okay, all right. Monday rolls around, Tuesday rolls around, Wednesday, Thursday, the next Friday. Oh, I don't have it. You're not going to continue working with me if I just keep making excuses for the check.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to get paid. Now, here's the thing with volunteers. Volunteers don't get paid with money. They get paid with fruit.
Yes.
So we have to make sure we have to make sure that we point out the fruit and we connect that fruit,
That's
that story,
good.
that testimony to the vision and the mission.
That's
Because everybody wants to
really
get paid.
good.
But volunteers get paid with their stories,
Yeah.
testimonies. That's the fruit. If they don't hear it, they're not getting paid.
Yeah. That's really good.
You got to make sure they're getting paid. So
Yeah.
I would just make sure that he's doing that. Let other voices happen in the huddle too. Like, hey, tell us
Yes.
what happened. And you
Yeah.
real quick tell us. See, that's
Yeah.
what we're all about. They
Yeah.
got to feel that, man. They got to feel that from that huddle. For sure.
Yeah,
So,
very good.
Yeah. What else you got? We got a couple minutes left.
Yeah. So, what specific training do you recommend for our ministry directors? And also kind of tying this question in too is some churches have what they call like a dream team pastor. So that person is essentially is over the dream team.
Right.
Do you recommend that, or is that really falling in line with the executive pastor?
I think where you're at, knowing your church, knowing where you're at, been there, I think that I think two things. One, I think each department needs to be that voice of encouragement. Department leader, that voice got to be that voice to those people. So you
Yes.
have this volunteer team, but you have these subgroups. Every subgroup needs to have that worship pastor, youth pastor, whatever, speaking into them, loving on them, encouraging them. Executive pastor needs to make sure that everybody's following that formula.
Yes.
Okay, because here's what's going to happen. Youth pastor, man, he meets every once a month with his team or every other month or whatever, and he charges them and they have encouragement. 3 times a year they're having barbecues, and once a month during the middle of the month he'll send them a little devotion or he'll do a video. And okay, now take that volunteer and he goes over to the worship guy or to the children's and like, we don't do anything. Now, what we're doing is unintentionally we are making that children's director and that ministry look bad because this guy is outshining her because they're both following different formulas of ministry development.
Yes.
They can't follow different formulas. It's got to be, hey guys, look, this is the requirement. You do 3 events a year with your team, like barbecue, whatever.
Yeah.
And you meet with them at least, every other month or whatever you guys come up with every other month. And this is what's going to happen. You got to lay out that criteria, because if you just say meet, if the meeting's not valuable, like who wants to go to it,
Yeah.
So right now where you're at, dream team, staff member, I don't think that's necessary. I think have the executive pastor create the formula for each of the team members that are team leaders that are leading the teams, because you don't want, it's like, man, he's killing it in the youth, but they're not killing it in the children. Then the volunteers talk. Who's going to look bad?
Yeah.
And that's not what we want. We just want to be like, because here's the thing. We want every volunteer saying, look, I've been to 5 other churches in my life, and I have never been so invested in and so loved and so encouraged and so thought of and have the deep kind of relationships on a volunteer team, never in my life until I came to this church.
Yeah.
We want to give them the VIP experience, the Disney experience, make it awesome. We talked about that. We want to give them an incredible experience, always, because we're creating raving fans.
Yep.
Your volunteer system will go through the roof if you create raving fans.
Yeah.
And if they're not raving, it's like, again, back to the restaurant example. Well, no one's raving about the restaurant. You're not going to grow, think about
true.
There's certain restaurants that have become nationwide, and I've never seen a commercial.
Wow.
Think about
true.
it. When's the last time you saw a commercial about P.F. Chang's? When's the last time you saw a commercial? I mean, you could go on Applebee's all day long, Chili's all day long, but P.F. Chang, I'm like, Cheesecake Factory.
No.
But they're
Love
nationwide.
Cheesecake Factory. Love it. We
And
go
they're
there every
nationwide.
time we're in the city. Yeah.
Right. But they're nationwide, but who's marketing them? We are.
We are, yeah.
The raving fans have made them nationwide.
Wow.
The raving
so
fans
good.
at your church will just explode the volunteer team. So create raving fans. But
yeah, very good.
Dude, I hope that helps. And I hope that helped
very
today, man,
helpful.
all of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And man, just know that I believe in you, man. I love your church. I love you guys. I know we're going to do some more coaching in the future, but man, I just believe in you, man. And I think God's got some incredible things for you. So
no, I appreciate it. No, this has been very, very incredible this time.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being on the call today, buddy. Appreciate it, man.
All right. Thank you. God bless you. Have a great day.
You too.